Hello and welcome again to another episode of One Starfish, where our mission is to help change the world one starfish or one person at a time. Our guest today has got a wicked beard, which explains his book title, by the way. Paul and I just met. He runs a seven-figure health and wellness business with his wife, which he started in 2017 after being a firefighter for 14 years.
Yep.
That was not a good experience and ending, apparently.
Yeah.
But now he's running his own business, and now he's starting to branch out. His wife is still doing the health and wellness, and he's going to branch out and is branching out into coaching men specifically. He wrote a book called Beardology, which sounds fun. Excited to have you on the show. Two sons, all the good stuff. Thanks for being on the show, Paul.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. So we were talking a little bit before about your health and wellness company. Let's get into that a little bit, and then let's get into the coaching, because that's, I know, where you want to go, and like what were
Yep.
some of the catalysts that got you where you're at. So you were a firefighter. Let's go back. You were a firefighter for 14 years, and then you got out of that. What got you into firefighting? And then why did you leave it? Because considering, I don't know if it's like where you're at, but in Canada, it's a pretty good quote job.
Yep. Yep. 100%. It's the same here in the States.
Yeah.
If you were to ask my mother, Angela, why I became a firefighter, she would go back to a story that I had, a very traumatic incident actually when I was 2 years old. And that was, we were living with my grandmother at the time. And much like my grandmother, I get up in the morning, I make a fresh pot of coffee. But I was 2 years old. I was climbing the countertops, exploring as, toddlers typically do. And I ended up falling off the countertop. And when I went to, brace my fall, I ended up grabbing a full pot of freshly brewed coffee and poured it all over my body.
Oh, geez.
So I had second and third degree burns all over my body. I spent a couple weeks in the burn unit, and the only thing that I remember from that experience was the fact that the firefighter that responded to my grandmother's house was standing in the doorway. I'm in the bathtub crying, and my mom's pouring water all over my body. That's the only memory that I have of that incident. But that, if you were to ask my mother, that is why she thinks that I went on that path at 16 years old to become a firefighter. And so, how I got introduced to firefighting was actually I went to a community college open house when I was 15 with my best friend. And that's where I got introduced to firefighting. And, it called to me. Like I saw and heard about it, and I was like, that's what I want to do. And the joke I kind of play is like, remember back when you were 16, like remember how, I like to say stupid we were when we're that young, right? Because we don't know anything. But at that age, I knew that's what I wanted to do. And so I started taking college credits when I was 16 years old, and still in high school and preparing myself for that career, which I eventually did for 14 years.
Wow. There's always a catalyst that kind of moves the needle. So you got into firefighting, got this quote good job, and then it sounds like it was kind of like not the good job you thought it was, or at least became that. And
Yeah.
then you went into health and wellness. Like, explain that transition and entrepreneurship. Were there entrepreneurs in your family, or how did that happen?
Yeah. So the first of all, I want to say that I would never dim the light of the firefighters and first responders and policemen that are doing that job every day. And I was that person. And what I found is, what I like to call it's like the good old boy system. So it's a great job, it's a great career, but there's a lot of dark side to that profession. And what I found myself was I was struggling being a bold, outspoken young man who was actually, I would go in and someone, a higher up firefighter would say, Paul, you know what, if you want to advance in this career, you need to go do this. And whatever this was, I would go do it. And so I ended up with 3 degrees, a bachelor's, two associates, a whole bunch of certifications because I wanted to grow myself, right? We're in this space of growing ourselves and fortitude and making us the best versions of ourselves. That's what I was doing within the fire department. But unfortunately, it's kind of, it's kind of, what would I say? It's like, it's not, it's not ideal for them because somebody that's doing that at a young age, ask questions and it becomes, they really live in the status quo is what it is. The fire department, the leadership, And I'm not saying every fire department, but I ended up moving around to 5 fire departments in my 14 years. And the reason was because I was searching for something. I kept telling myself if I went to this department, it's going to be different. And it never was. So, after I left the fire department, I realized that it was me. It wasn't the fire department. I was the round peg trying to fit in a square box, right? And I just had to find myself within that career. And unfortunately, in 2015, I had a close friend who died at the age of 36. He was a firefighter with me. We came up, through the fire service together. He died of cancer. It was called a line of duty death because here in the States, I don't know if it's the same way where you are, but every state has what's called a presumptive cancer law. And what that basically says is we know that firefighters are more prone to getting cancer because of the things that they're exposed to.
Mhm.
And so, like I said, he was 36 years old, and that rocked me. It rocked me to my core. He was in my wedding. We were close. Funny story is he and I both had these miniature Yorkies as dogs. These big, strong firemen have these little purse dogs. It was kind of funny, and we didn't plan that, but he died in 2015, and I just knew at that time like this is no longer for me. Like something had to change within my story because also, Angela, at that time, I was at the sickest I had ever been. I had no sense of smell. I had no sense of taste. I was about 40 pounds heavier than I am now. I was sick. I was totally sick. And so I stepped into that path of fear. I was the primary breadwinner. I had the insurance, I had the retirement, I had all of those things.
Mhm.
And I told my wife, I said, something's got to give. I can't keep doing this. So the need to change, the desire to keep moving forward and progressing myself as a man, not only for myself but for my family, was a lot more than the safety and security that I would have had to stay at the fire department. So I left and I ended up actually starting a home inspection business because when I left the fire department, I was leaving as an investigator and what they call a prevention officer. And so I was going to construction sites. I was taking pictures of discrepancies of the new building being built. I was providing a report. And that's much like the home inspection industry. Somebody wants to buy a home, I go in there, I find the issues, I take pictures, I provide them a report, and
Mhm.
then they get to decide if they want to buy a home.
Right.
So I started that home inspection business, and that was actually the catalyst that led me out of the fire department. Had it not been for that, I don't know if I would have left. But that's what got me, on the path of looking forward and looking towards my future. And so I started that home inspection business. I did that for 3 months. I was very successful. But then my wife came to me, who's a doctor, and said, you know what? I want to start this. I want us to have a family practice, a wellness clinic. You can help me do what I do best, which she's a doctor. She's a health coach. She restores people's health back to normal, basically. And at that time, she's like, okay, and then you can bring our oldest son in the office. So I shut that down and we started this wellness business and we've grown it to over 7 figures and multiple employees. And, literally today we're going from 2,000 square feet. We have a new space that's going to be about 6,000 square feet. So, that business side, that entrepreneurial side is what I've been living the past 8 years.
Congrats, that's awesome. So
Thank
tell us
you.
a little bit about the health and wellness business, and you were telling a little bit before, what's your mission with it compared to like any other clinic?
Yeah. So our mission is, when we look at the canvas of disease, we look at the canvas of, especially here in the United States, of healthcare. It's a trash fire. Like, Americans are the sickest they've ever been. They're the most overweight they've ever been, yet we spend all this money on healthcare every year. And that doesn't match up, right? If you own a business, you know that those two things don't go together. Like if we're spending more money, the other things should be better. And that's not the case here. But
Mm.
we are part of a health restoration clinic group. We have, I don't know, like 50 locations over the United States called the Wellness Way. And we do health differently. So the big thing that we do differently is we don't upcharge for any of our tests. So let's say you wanted to come in our office and you say, Paul, you know what? You know, you're female, you have more hormones than me. That's totally okay and acceptable. But let's say you wanted to get a complete snapshot of where your hormones are. We take a full comprehensive lab view. We do a urine test, we do blood tests to actually figure out what's really going on. But we don't upcharge for that. You would pay exactly what I would pay as an owner because we want you to have the results. And then what we do is we build a custom tailored plan to what those results say about your body. And that's why we're able to get the results that we get because we don't do any protocols. We really don't actually care what disease you've been diagnosed with because we're more focused on what your body is telling us through comprehensive lab.
That's good. So I'm curious because you went into that, you quit firefighter and you had a bunch of health things. What were
Mhm.
some of the things, like I'm guessing things are, you're feeling good now. What are some of the
Yes.
things that I'm just curious that you did or, continue to do that have helped you personally?
Oh man. So if I were to show you my testing binder of the test that I just spoke about, it's about this thick.
Oh, wow. A couple
It
inches for those on podcast.
Yeah, partly because oh, there goes my
There we go.
camera.
It's camera. We're having fun with the
Sorry.
camera. It's all good.
Um, so yeah, partly because it's being a firefighter, you're exposed to that toxic stuff all the time. And much like my friend, he had cancer. So when I left, I was very, very scared. I was scared. I mean, just let's just call it what it is. I was scared. I was scared I was going to have the same fate as him. And when I left, I had no sense of smell, no sense of taste. So, we basically got to work on my health journey. And as I sit here today, my smell is fantastic. I haven't had to have a sinus surgery in 10 years, which I had three before I left the fire department. And it was one of those things where it's like every 3 years I had to go in there and they had to go in there and take out the crap and do all that stuff. But it was the lifestyle change. It was the comprehensive lab work. It was the way we approach the body and how we get that to go back to normal as much as we can. So I wouldn't say after 8 years, like I'm completely healed. There are some still, things that I just have permanent damage from, being exposed to all of the toxins at the fire department that I have to constantly, just kind of, watch myself, see what my lab tests say, and make sure that I'm living a most healthy lifestyle that I can.
That's good. So what are some things, so I don't know if you knew this, I have an autoimmune disorder that I'm
No, I do
working
not.
through. I have MS. And
Okay.
so, what are some things that you think people do? Or like you said, there's more illness out there. And that's just something also would be in the financial industry. We paid out more claims in the last year than I paid out in like the previous 7 years. And so that there's a thing. Why do you think that is? I'm just curious if you guys have like a synopsis as far as like why are there more illnesses out there I feel like than there ever was before.
So first of all, I'm not a doctor, so
Nope.
I'm going to say
Put the
that.
disclaimer in there. Yeah.
But here's the thing. What makes us so different is we look at your whole body. So have you ever seen a Swiss watch, right? It's got all the gears, multiple size gears. They all work together. Your body's the same. The reason we're so sick is one, we can take corruption and just put that aside because that is a big proponent of it. But more importantly, too, is we have all these specialists, right? I'm a specialist in autoimmune. I'm a specialist in heart disease. I'm a specialist in podiatry or whatever it is.
Hmm.
They don't look at your entire body.
Right.
They don't look at your body like a Swiss watch. And we do. If you have this one issue and that gear stops turning, guess what? All the other gears in that Swiss watch principle, they don't turn either. And so we have to stop being so laser focused on one thing, one disease, one symptom. And that's what makes us so different is we look at your body like a Swiss watch. It's like, no, we're not going to get so tunnel vision on, if you've been diagnosed with autoimmune, we're going to look at your body as this whole environment of like what's going on, right? Like this whole environment. My wife uses, I'm not good enough to quote it exactly, but it's like this whole fishbowl analogy. We look at this whole fishbowl as your body, and it's like we don't, we're going to clean the entire fishbowl. We're not going to just clean one piece of the fishbowl and be focused on just one area.
Okay, I love that. So now you're branching off from the health and wellness, which by the way, guys, wife is still doing, sounds amazing.
Yep.
So if you need any help there, we'll have all that stuff in the show notes for both. But now you're branching off into men's coaching. Tell us, why did you decide to do that? And tell us a little bit about what your mission is with that.
Yeah. So and I'm going to be real with you here because it's just me. I don't know if you guys ever talk, spirituality or anything like that on your podcast, but about a year ago, God called me to go coach men. And he had called me before about 2 years ago, but I did not feel qualified. I didn't feel qualified to go lead men 2 years ago. I didn't think I had like all the things I had to have to go do that. Right. It's the whole imposter syndrome type conversation. So I ignored it and I kept doing what I was doing. But as a man, I knew even though I'm building this business with my wife, even though I get to pick my hours and my boys come to the office with me, I was still not feeling that satisfied feeling. Oh my gosh. So sorry. I was not feeling that feeling within inside myself. And so I knew something was missing and I knew that I had to, I think I'm gonna have to get a new camera.
We got
I
camera
knew
issues for anyone
I,
listening.
yeah, I
This camera's
knew,
got its own mind.
I knew that I had to change because if there was something that, was constantly, bothering me was I had to help myself as a man. And that's the big thing was, um, I just, as men, we have to be constantly focused on building ourselves and providing security for our family and all of that. And I was just missing that. So I knew that, um, I had to do something different. And so when I heard the call a year ago from God, who I heard the voice inside myself was like, you need to go coach men. I decided to listen at that time. And I've been on this path for the past year where I have just been building and building and whether it's with the relationship with my wife or my kids or my business or my body, like I'm so focused on helping men do the same thing. And so, these clients that I have, like when I see them start winning, it just fills me up and I'm able to give them perspective and clarity on stuff they're struggling with because here in the United States, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but men are being attacked. We're hearing things from society of not being masculine and, don't do this and the dad bod and all of that stuff. It's like, no, that's all kind of some BS in my opinion. Men need to set the standard for their families. You have kids, I'm setting the standard for my boys, and so, that's really what I'm helping men do.
I love that. And God doesn't, what is it? God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. So
Yes, I love it.
if
I
you're
love it.
listening to this and you're
Yep.
feeling called, listen to the calling. I feel
I don't
like
know. I don't
sometimes when we
know.
don't listen, things
Um,
go south and it's not a good thing. So
yeah, I don't. Do you know who said that?
well, I know Ed Milet said it, but I don't know who originally said it, if it was him or someone else.
Okay.
But I know I've heard it a lot through Ed,
Yeah.
and yeah, I just yeah, really resonate with that one for sure. So
I
that's
love
really
that
cool.
quote. Like I've never known who said it, but yeah, that is such a powerful statement.
Yeah, and it's true. And our test is our testimony, our mess is our message. And the things that we think are our problems are the things that actually will enable us to help other people. Um,
Exactly.
and so yeah, so now you've wrote a book. called
Yep.
Beardology, which I think is a
Yep.
cool name. And if you are watching the video, you'll get why the name.
Yeah.
Got a wicked, wicked beard. What's the premise of the book? Tell us a little bit about it. And by the way, we'll have it in the show notes, guys. If you want to get the
Awesome.
book, I'm sure it'll be great. So order it.
So the big thing for me that I like to talk about is I've always wanted to write a book, and I still just had that imposter syndrome that, it's like, who would want to read my story,
Mhm.
right? Like it was a limiting belief that I placed on myself.
Mhm.
And we do that so much in our
Mhm.
lives. Like we do it to our children, we do it to ourselves.
Mhm.
So in November, I had a coach and mentor, which I highly, I'm all, not just because I am a coach, but I think everybody should have a coach or mentor. Like two heads are always better than one, right? And so he challenged me. He's like, you need to go write a book. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to write a book. And so I started that process. I actually hired a coach that his whole thing was to help me write a book in 8 weeks. And so that's what I decided to do was write a book in less than 2 months. And so the premise of it is it's called Beardology, obviously for a reason. But what I found in that story was the verb definition of beard. It means to confront with boldness and resolution, and often defiance.
Hmm.
And that is the story for my entire life. I've been bold. I defy the status quo, and I'm always looking for resolution no matter what. So that is, if I say, hey, Angela, you're bearded, I'm not talking about facial hair. I'm talking about you being a savage and doing a
That makes me
podcast.
want a beard. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. So everybody has the proverbial beard. Let me turn this off here to see if that's better. There we go. So everybody has their proverbial beard. Has nothing to do with facial hair, and but it's all about finding the quest, the symbol for your freedom, and that's what it was for me. Now it sounds real silly, but when I left the fire department, I also told my wife, I said, "Honey, I'm growing a beard, and I'm never shaving again." Now, that's not why I left the fire department, but I knew that I wasn't being me. Like I knew that this beard was always the man I was supposed to be. And so through that journey, the beard became like my bat symbol. Like it became me, right? I have friends that call me the beard man, like just like Batman, which is awesome. Um, but it became my symbol to continually adapt and grow and just be myself authentically. And so my book is about my story. It's like part memoir, but it's also part self-help because in each chapter, I tell you my story, but I provide you a lesson. And then at the end of each chapter, there's key takeaways for you to start reflecting on your journey. Like, what is your symbol for your freedom, Angela? It's probably not going to be a beard, but we all need that symbol to keep us moving forward every day, to
mm,
be our future selves. And
mhm.
so, yeah, that's it. I wrote the book and it took me a little over 2 months, but it's a picture of me in my firefighting
Oh, cool.
gear and then the guy with the beard, kind of the light and dark of it. And so, I'm getting feedback. It's been out for about a month. And that's the thing. I had someone reach out to me on Instagram saying, "Dude, I love the book. I read it in one sitting." I'm like, "Well, you missed the point." And they were kind of shocked because remember, I'm bearded. I'm confronting with boldness. I said, here's the deal. I'm thankful you read the book in one sitting, but you missed the point. You're going to have to go back and read it because this book is meant for you to reflect on your life
Mm,
and where you want to go. So, those key takeaways at the bottom, you need to answer those questions.
mm,
And
mhm.
if you're reading it straight through, you're just reading another book to put on the bookshelf and say, I read another self-help book.
Right.
And that's what it's not designed to do. And the other thing is for people that buy my book from me, I literally tell them to burn this book.
Mhm.
It's a challenge. It's a challenge that if I am not able to provide value or get you interested in the book within 1 hour, I want you to set it on fire and tag me on Instagram.
That's,
So there,
I love that.
yes. So there I'm being totally bearded. Like that's boldness. But that's who I am. It's who I am.
That's cool. I love that. So, a couple times you mentioned, and I'm curious, you mentioned imposter syndrome. Why didn't go into coaching? Why didn't want to write the book? What do you think helps someone overcome imposter syndrome? Like, where did the switch happen so that you did decide to go into coaching? You did decide to write the book. What are some tangible things people could implement if they're feeling that way?
Yeah. So tangible things, I would say meditation.
Hmm.
We talked a little bit about spirituality. I'm not religious at all. I don't go to church. I don't believe you have to go to church to be connected with God. I don't believe, you have to tithe and do all these things in order to have a spiritual connection. For me, spirituality, it happens a lot in my meditation.
Hmm.
And I used to be a guy. I had a coach that tried to get me to meditate, and I couldn't do it. But it was like working out. I had to constantly work at how to meditate, how to calm my mind, and how to start searching and hearing, what my soul is telling me, right? And so I think meditation will cause you to reflect on what it is that you want. We hear all the time that people, oh, I lost my sense of purpose. I don't believe you ever lose your sense of purpose. You're just not seeking it, right? We're constantly bombarded with distractions, right? Whether it's Netflix and all the stuff on social media, we're distracted all the time. That's why we're the sickest we've ever been. That's why divorce rates are the highest they've ever been. And all of these things, it's like, no, we're constantly bombarded with distractions.
Mhm.
And the thing about imposter syndrome is this: it doesn't matter where you're at, there's always someone to your right that you can help mentor and get them to have a better or different perspective. And so I just learned that, you know what? No, I do have a story. I had health problems. I mean, firefighting was my only career for 14 years. And for me to say, you know what? I'm going to take a chance on being an entrepreneur. We're not going to have the guaranteed income. We're not going to have the guaranteed insurance. I'm going to walk away from all that to bet on myself. And that's fear. And I get asked the question all the time, like, okay, how do you get past fear? And the example that I give is, okay, imagine, Angela, if your back is against the wall, what do you got to do to move forward? You have to take a step. That's the only way. If you don't like posting on social media for your business, guess what? You got to post social media for your business. If you're fearful of speaking on stages, that's what you got to go do to get over that fear. So fear is the path that we must walk to have real transformation in life. And it all starts with that first step. Your back's against the wall, you take that first step to get off the wall. That's it.
Cool. I love that. That's awesome. Guys, make sure to follow, reach out. Like I said, we'll have everything in the show notes. I always wrap up with 3 final questions and then anything that we didn't touch on that you think would be really
Yep.
impactful for our listeners. So first and final question is, if someone is looking for their purpose, what's one sentence you would say that could help them find it?
One sentence I would say, wow. Um, I'm a man of many words. So I would say, just be still and listen to the light and the dark. We need to, oftentimes in society, we avoid the darkness. And that was kind of my big thing with the church was they don't like to talk about the dark stuff. But you need the dark stuff to have the light. So the dark turns into the light.
Oh, I like that. Second question, what's one of your favorite quotes and why?
So again, I don't know who said it, but it is: you only win when your mind is stronger than your emotions.
Hmm. Man, I like that one.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's good. And third and final question, what's a favorite quote and why?
Oh, did we just do that one? Favorite quote?
Yeah, sorry. Third one is yeah, thanks. I was like go through this stuff. I was like so distracted. I was trying to like write this quote down in my head.
I'll
What's
send it to
one?
you.
Yeah, send it to me. That'd be great. What's one word or sentence you want on your gravestone?
Oh man. Um, I think it would have to be fear is the path.
Here's the path. That's cool. That's a different
Yeah.
one. All right. So you run into someone in a coffee shop and they're like, hey, Paul, that was awesome. Like learning about, following my calling, learning about finding your purpose, all the stuff we chatted about, like not staying with something if it's not where you're supposed to be, but if it seems safe.
Mhm.
What's something we didn't touch on that you think would be really impactful for our listeners?
Yeah, I think I would have to just leave you guys with a positive message, which is no matter where you're at, like you can do it. Like whatever it is, you just got to start pursuing it and seeking it. And it's we live, I feel like we live in a self-deprecating society. Like we don't believe in ourselves enough because we're not in touch with ourselves. And so, instead of placing limiting beliefs on your life, like start thinking about what's possible. Because when I was in this process of leaving the fire department to becoming an entrepreneur, I never thought about sitting on a podcast with Angela. I thought about all the fear. I thought about, oh, what if I lose my house? How am I going to take care of my family? All of this stuff. I
Mm.
never thought about writing a book. I never thought about, building a business over 7 figures. I never thought about coaching men. Like we got to think about what's possible and not be so focused on the fear. The fear drives us, right? Because I said fear is the path on my tombstone. That is the path you must walk if you want transformation. But we got to also be in tune with the light and think about, okay, what is possible if I pursue this? Because most people are scared of failing in public.
Mhm.
A lot of people are not scared of failing per se, but they don't want people to have the perception that they failed. And that's
Mhm.
when they stop. That's when they stop.
Makes sense. I think they're a failure. Instead of
Yes.
doing a fail, like failing, they
Yeah.
are a failure. And that's a
Yes.
whole different ball game.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's still good. I love that. Guys, like I said, make sure to rate, review, subscribe, share, get the word out. That's how we get this thing out there. If we can go out there and we can change one life or one starfish at a time together, we can change the world. Thanks for being on, Paul.
Thank you so much for having me.